What in the world? Has an elephant escaped and made its way to the second floor? Sounds as though it is coming directly from above me, but that is the storage room. Hello everybody, welcome back to some Poirot, the first cases. We potentially fucked up an achievement last time, because we were supposed to get one for investigating everything in the staff related areas, and we did not. Which means that if I want all the achievements in this game, I will have to play through, at the very least, the majority of it. I mean, assuming that we haven't like fucked up any other achievements. I should theoretically only have to play up until that point, but even then, that isn't like a short path. I mean, I don't know where the storage room is, if I'm being honest. I'm going to hope it's over here. Yeah. Why would Monsieur Sterling be in here clattering around in the dead of night? Archibald is up in the middle of the night making some amount of noise. I must find out the extent of his behavior.
Monsieur Sterling.
Oh, Detective, I was just...
Please, I eagerly await to hear what reason you give for being in the storage room at this hour.
A butler's job is never...
I am no fool, monsieur. You have spun enough stories this weekend.
Honestly, Detective, you don't trust anyone.
And with good reason.
My patience is all but run out. What are you doing in here?
I've been thinking about my time with the family.
I often think on fond memories, but it does not take me to a storage room in the middle of the night.
I mean, clearly he was moving that cabinet. You can see the marks on the floor where it's been moved.
There are many memories held within
So I
these
mean, your
walls.
secret room would be behind there.
I just...
Monsieur Sterling sounds as though he plans on leaving the house. It sounded as though you were moving furniture in here.
I didn't realize the noise I was making.
Obviously. Were you preoccupied looking for another of the Major's medals?
Of course not. I already explained.
No, monsieur. You attempted to dupe me again into believing one of your stories.
Please, Detective. I know you know how it ended up in my possession. I was just trying to get some extra money together to send home. I can't lose this job. If Lady Van den Bosch found out...
Theft of a medal would be the very least of your problems.
You have done nothing but deceive and abuse your position in the house.
Deceive? I'm sorry that I lied to you about the medal.
Even when confronted, Monsieur Sterling still remains steadfast and refused to acknowledge what he has done.
Would you care to explain the fake telephone call? It was purely for my benefit, no?
Why would I fake a telephone call?
The same reason that Mademoiselle Rihanna dressed in the Major's jacket in the snow, to allow not only the guests but me to believe the Major was still alive.
I didn't kill him, Detective.
I know, monsieur, but I also know that you helped the one that did to cover their tracks.
It wasn't like that. We were just trying to help. She had no part in it.
Both you and Mademoiselle Rihanna risked your freedom to help Elizabeth.
You never let on. How long have you known it was her?
Monsieur, I am Detective Hercule Poirot. I only show my hand when I deem it necessary.
You will be taking her away then.
She will stand trial for what she has done.
But you don't know the full story. She is just a servant in this house. If she is arrested, that will be the end for her.
If Mademoiselle was only protecting herself, as you both have claimed, she will surely be found innocent.
Well, technically she wouldn't at this point, right? Like, if it was self-defense and she had come to you immediately, then she may have been found innocent based on self-defense. But the fact that they covered it up, even if she is found not guilty of murder because it was self-defense, she would still be guilty of other things like obstruction of justice and yada, 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 right? You have still not explained what you were doing in here.
The Major's military storage box.
The one that stored his medals.
Amongst other things, yes.
And those other things are?
I had to protect her. If you found it when searching the study, you would have carted her off then and there.
Whatever it is you have hidden, it will not remain that way for much longer.
Monsieur Sterling is obviously hiding something. I should perhaps conduct my own search for it instead of relying on his cryptic
I
messages.
need a moment. Aha.
One of the many saint carvings from around the house, abandoned in a box. Why is this saint carving in here? Well, because like I said, this has clearly been moved. Oh, do I need to actually piece it together? Detached saint carving. Hid items related to the murder.
Is there something?
No. Implies he is leaving the house. Admits to the cover-up. Taking metals for extra money. Claims there's more to the story.
Order and
Oh,
method.
hang on. Fuck. For some reason, I just completely blanked that this was down here. I just wasn't
I
seeing
should not
it.
be surprised by my own skills of deduction.
The detached carving may relate to a door in this room. That would explain Archibald's presence. Secret room with accessible from the storage room, and he's hiding items.
What a revelation!
Must have hidden items in the secret room. I presume it exists within somewhere. Yeah, it's right fucking here. Boop. Oh, achievement. Well traveled. You have visited all locations in the game. That one, I'm pretty sure you have to get. There's no way that it isn't. A hidden room. It seems there are more secrets in this house to discover. Military service box. Contains letters and keepsakes. Expensive lighter.
Aha.
Looks to have unfortunately been through a war. Come, my little Grace House. I believe we know something about this mystery. The letter. The last will and testament of the late Viscount. It seems he truly loved Angeline. That's a secret? That the Viscount loved his daughter? Oh my, what a revelation. I declare that I, Viscount Edwin van den Bosch, am of sound mind. This last will expresses my wishes without undue influence or duress. In the event of my death, I hereby appoint my wife, Cassandra van den Bosch, as the executor of the Van den Bosch estate, and I leave the remaining wealth held in the Van den Bosch name to my only daughter, Angeline van den Bosch. Any outstanding debts, expenses of my last illness, funeral expenses, and administration costs are to be paid from the Van den Bosch account at the National Bank of Belgium. To my daughter Angeline, you are the apple of my eye and the brightest star in the sky. Never allow your light to fade for even a moment. To my wife Cassandra, thank you for the many joyous years. We have laughed, we have loved, and we have brought the most precious of gifts into this world together. I trust that you will protect her and prepare her for a future full of opportunity and hope. Well, that's a nice will. I really thought that it might have said something about her being the Major's daughter in there, but... Prestigious looking knife likely belonging to the Major. Alright, well... Bloodstains, military knife, rose engraving, disarmed discharge, not receiving a pension, Viscount left belongings to Angeline, maybe?
Come, my little grey cells.
The Major killed prisoners of war. When did we learn that? I honestly do not remember ever coming across that one. Alright. It kind of looks like a rose in the picture.
Things are beginning to become...
Later must belong to the Major. The army symbol all but confirms it, but don't I already have this in my possession?
Some would say a lucky guess.
The lighter I found in the military box is certainly the Major's, meaning the other one is not. Okay. But we're not done here. Bloodstains. Where's something? There we go. Murder weapon.
The pieces of the puzzle are finally coming together.
The murder weapon has been found. Elizabeth must have used this in the study. back to the storeroom, but is Archibald still here? Let's see. Was there anything else that I could? No. Oh, I guess there is markings behind the clock there as well.
There is no use lying anymore.
When I inspected the garden yesterday, I found a lighter I assumed belonged to the Major.
He always had his regiment lighter that he received in the war on his person.
And yet, it was not his regiment emblem that was engraved on it.
My father's. It must have fallen out of my pocket. You still have it, detective.
Monsieur, you have stashed evidence, manipulated a crime scene, obscured my investigation, and yet it is a lighter that you worry about most?
If it is my path to end up behind bars for what I have done, so be it. It is Elizabeth that you cannot allow to be locked up without the truth being told. I have heard how you fought for that young maid before. Florette, is it? I only ask that you do the same for Elizabeth.
Although the cases differ greatly in severity, no shit, I can envision the similarities in how Mademoiselle Elizabeth will be treated by those in positions of authority or social standing, even before she is trialed. It is my oath as an officer of the law to uphold justice and fairness. Mademoiselle must be given the chance to prove her innocence before the courts as any other suspect. So the absent murder weapon.
You found it.
Even the secret area that has been created here is not concealed enough to stop Detective Hercule Poirot.
I mean, it stopped you the first time you came into the room. If Archibald hadn't been up here, you never would have found it.
I couldn't just leave it at the scene for you to find.
The Major was killed by his own knife. The knife that protected his life during the war would eventually be the one that ended it.
Oh, you know what I just realized? If we just got the achievement for stepping into every location in the game, there was no windows in there, and we didn't get the achievement for investigating all the windows either. So I fucked up a couple of achievements.
It was in his holster when he attacked her. He had hold of her arm. What else was she meant to use to get him off of her?
I cannot imagine the Major would have given his knife up easily. She must have been in close proximity to reach it. Perhaps he did attack her, as she claims.
She didn't plan any of it, detective. She was only defending herself.
That is what Mademoiselle told you?
She did, and I believe her. You think you knew the Major, but you had no idea. He was a monster and had more secrets than all of us combined.
That may be true, but that does not excuse what she has done.
Put yourself in her shoes for a minute. If a man like that had attacked me the way he did Lizzie, I would have done a lot worse to him.
Well, you're a lot bigger. Mademoiselle Elizabeth has told Monsieur Sterling a version of the events that suggests she was attacked by the Major. I struggled to believe that she would make such a story up, but then I also did not believe she could do such a thing as commit murder. Well, here's the thing, right? Killing somebody when they attack you isn't committing murder. So technically, if she did it in self-defense, you were right that she isn't somebody who would commit murder.
I need a moment.
Because, I mean, self-defense is not murder. Archibald claims the Major attacked. The lighter from the garden belongs to Archibald. Was in the garden where there was an open window.
Another success.
I mean, there's no reason
I
that this
never
would be
doubted
here if
myself.
it wasn't going to connect to something. The only thing I found was Archibald's lighter. He must have collected something else. What did Archibald collect? The knife.
This will not get me any closer to
Really?
my goal. I should not be surprised by my own.
Archibald dropped the murder weapon from the window, collected it, then hid it in the secret room. Okay, we got the murder weapon.
There is no use.
It was you that I saw in the garden that night.
When you asked me yesterday about seeing someone out there, I thought the game was up.
That does not explain what you were doing out there.
When Lizzie took me to the study, the knife was still in the Major's chest, and I knew I had to get rid of it. I dropped it out of the window, knowing no one would be going outside. It was fine for the time being, but I couldn't risk it being found when the snow melted.
A plan that only works in winter.
So you collected it under the cover of darkness and stowed it away in here where you thought no one would find it.
I'd like to know what he's doing up here right now, though, because, like, once again, if he hadn't come up here, Poirot had absolutely zero clue as to where the secret room was.
After your questioning in the pantry, I knew you were onto something, and I couldn't leave it here.
And where did you plan on moving it to?
Honestly, I don't know.
Collecting them and hiding it to save Elizabeth, he must truly want to protect her from the law.
There is no use lying.
I have one last question. Why?
Why what? Why I would risk everything to help Lizzie?
Exactement.
Because she is family. If you were in that position, you would do the same.
I can assure you, monsieur, that I would not.
Then perhaps that says something about you, Detective. I would do anything for her, for any of my staff.
Even if it means crossing the boundaries of the law?
Without question.
The lengths that Monsieur Sterling would go to protect someone he considers family is admirable, but when those lengths break the very laws that are in place to protect the innocent, they cannot be ignored. I ask that once your morning duties for the ladies of the house are complete, Mademoiselle Rihanna and yourself wait in the staff quarters.
Aye, Detective, but please, you have to help Lizzie. It was all an accident. She doesn't deserve to spend the rest of her days behind bars because of that man.
If she is put behind bars, it is because that is what the courts have decided upon.
Detective, you can't be so cruel.
It is not cruelty, monsieur. It is the law.
See, I feel like a lot of times people don't like the court system because they see all these TV shows like cop shows and that where they get all this evidence that's like bam, that's the guy. We know it's the guy 100%, right? But in real life, in real cases, that doesn't happen. Like it's very rare to be for anybody to be 100% sure, and a lot of times there's people who are 100% sure this guy did it and that guy didn't do it because maybe they found some evidence, maybe he answered questions in a way that made them suspect him even more than they should have, stuff like that. But my point is that in real life there is very rarely a case that's like bam 100% this guy did it. After all these further revelations, my mind is as busy as Monsieur Goulet's chocolate soup. I have all the pieces of the puzzle to deduce why Elizabeth killed the Major, and I must allow my low gray cells to put them together. Oh, God, alright. After finding those documents in the hidden room, things are starting to fall into place as to why Elizabeth may have killed him. Alright. I'm just gonna get all of these marked off, because obviously with all of them being new, the fact that they're new means nothing. Alright. Nestle paid the Major well for his support. Security attacked first. The Major was in a bad financial state. Under the guardianship of Madame, belongings to Angeline, Major was building his militia, contacted old friends. Security attacked first. Dishonorably discharged. Not receiving his pension, killed prisoners of war, paid the blackmail ransom. Well, I mean, if some people found this
Magnifique.
out, this is information would have destroyed his reputation of unveiled, a strong motive for blackmail. Expand evidence. This certified Major has been discharged from the British Army in consequences of crimes against humanity during a period of war. While serving overseas, a number of prisoners of war were being held under the authority and supervision of Major Felix Hagen. While in his care, the prisoners were executed, an insubordinate act that disobeyed direct orders. His actions have been deemed in direct violation of the British Army values and ethics, and consequently, Major Felix Hagen has been withdrawn from his position and will return to England. Major Felix Hagen is to renounce all responsibility of his rank, return any and all uniform, and will return to civilian life. Pension due to be received from the British Army will hereby be revoked, and any benefits are to be stopped with immediate effect. When did we get this letter? Like, I don't remember finding that at all. Like, okay, well, I mean, he wasn't receiving his pension and was in a bad financial state. That
Some
seems like
would
it
say
would
a
link.
lucky guess.
The Major's financial struggles must have left him in need of a source of income. Who could the Major have turned to in a time of need? Well, I mean, Ernesto was paying
Things are
him, right?
beginning to become clear.
They needed the job to go ahead. It was the only way to guarantee money in his pocket. What could he do to ensure the job wouldn't be complete? Well, I mean,
The
security
pieces of the
attack.
puzzle.
To secure his payment, the Major must have ordered the attack at the strikes. What were the consequences of the Major ordering the first attack? Well, Luke died.
What a revelation.
The Major's actions unfortunately led to the death of Luke, and all for greed, a person we never met in this game. Who would have been most affected by all of this? Well, I mean, obviously, Rihanna and
I should
Elizabeth.
not be surprised by my own skills.
Elizabeth has probably lost more than anyone else involved. She may have sought her revenge. Elizabeth doesn't seem like the vengeful type, but all signs are pointing to her seeking revenge for her beloved Luke. I mean, I could very easily see her confronting him about it. If I'm to confront Mademoiselle Elizabeth, I must be at my best and my little gray cells at their most alert. It is time to at least, or to rest my head or something. I have no time to wallow in my lack of sleep. I must confront Mademoiselle Elizabeth and hopefully finally know the truth of what took place.
Detective Poirot, I'm glad you're awake.
Oh.
Bonjour, mademoiselle. It has certainly not been a night of peaceful sleep. There is something that we must discuss.
Please, Detective, I'm not sure I can take any more surprises like last night.
You know, something I've noticed, which is really weird, is that both Angeline and Elizabeth, at the very least those two, their pictures that you see like on the right there, and their character models are mirrored for some reason.
I'm afraid this may be the most upsetting of them all.
You have found Felix's killer, haven't you?
I have. And the guilty party will certainly come as a shock.
I take no great pleasure in telling you this, mademoiselle.
Detective, please.
It was Mademoiselle Elizabeth that was behind the Major's death.
You must be mistaken. Elizabeth could not do such a thing.
I assure you I am not. It is something I spent much of last night deliberating. When you spoke of the telephone lines being out of order, it made me question the conversation I thought I had heard Monsieur Sterling make with the Major before connecting the call to him.
But it hasn't been working all weekend.
Exactement, mademoiselle. That is when I knew I had once again been lied to.
On my way to speaking with Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna, I met Mademoiselle Elizabeth.
She was meant to be resting in the staff quarters. She has not been well.
I am afraid that was yet another lie, orchestrated to keep her from incriminating herself.
Why would you think that, Detective?
I only managed a few words with her before we were quite abruptly interrupted by Monsieur Sterling.
I must admit, he has a habit of speaking over the other staff.
It was much more than merely disturbing our conversation. It was done with the intention to prevent Mademoiselle saying something that she should not.
So, Elizabeth killed Felix, and then Archibald helped her cover it up?
In its simplest form, oui.
You have spoken with Elizabeth already? Did she admit to it?
Not Elizabeth, but Monsieur Sterling.
Were you not woken last night by the tremendous amount of noise coming from the storage room?
I wasn't. What were you doing in there, Detective?
It was Monsieur Sterling that I found in there. I was taken by some surprise to hear anyone awake at that hour.
What on earth was he doing?
He claimed he was merely reminiscing of his time with the family.
You don't believe him?
It did not take long for me to uncover the truth of why he was there and the location of the Major's murder weapon.
Did you know the hidden area within the storage room?
Hidden area?
A room that held all of the Major's secrets.
I had no idea. Did you discover the reason for his blackmail?
I did. Were you aware he was dishonorably discharged from the army?
Dishonorably? What does that mean?
I will not hide the truth, mademoiselle, but I will try and be as delicate as possible with the news of the Major's prior actions. I am sure you are aware of Monsieur Zachariah's troubles he faces from his time in the war.
Yes, Gideon told me about the conversation you had. It is really quite upsetting.
Zachariah was adamant of the Major's cruelty during the war, but the extent was not known until now. He killed a number of prisoners, men that were friends of Zachariah.
Surely not. He would not do such a thing. They must have been trying to escape.
I am afraid not. They were in fact unarmed.
Oh, detective.
It is the reason he was discharged, denied his military pension, and I believe the reason he fled England.
He had been such an important part of my life for so long, but I feel like I hardly knew him.
Monsieur Sterling was adamant that Mademoiselle Elizabeth innocent.
Innocence? You said it was she that killed him.
It was her hand that held the knife, but he was quite insistent it happened in self-defense.
In all of the years I have known her, she has barely even raised her voice. I cannot believe she would do something like that out of malice.
The whole truth cannot be known until Mademoiselle Elizabeth has told her story.
Oh, Poirot's picture is mirrored as well for some reason. I just noticed that. It's harder to tell on him, but his vest, I guess, underneath his jacket, I don't know, is going the other way. I allowed my perception of her character to conceal any thought of her involvement. It seems I'm not the only one. The time has come to confront Mademoiselle
Will
Elizabeth.
you allow me to be present?
I think that is an excellent idea. I hope your presence will calm her and will perhaps allow her to speak more freely.
Please, detective. I know she has done a terrible thing, but I beg of you to give her the time to explain herself.
I will offer Mademoiselle Elizabeth the fair trial that she deserves, as I would with any suspect.
See, now, if we had police like Poirot, like if every cop was like Poirot here, we could be like in Judge Dredd, where, you know, the guy goes out, he hears the cases, he investigates, and then right there on the spot, he becomes the judge. Like, but unfortunately, most cops aren't like that, you know? Like, I'm not saying all cops are shitty or all cops are like corrupt or all cops are whatever. But I mean, there's a level of nonsense in like Poirot, Sherlock, all of these, where they draw their conclusions from information that most cops probably wouldn't have gotten. Not because they weren't skilled enough, but because that's just not the way people's brains actually work.
Thank you, Detective Poirot.
Would you bring Mademoiselle Elizabeth to the study, where we will not be disturbed?
Of course, I'll find her immediately.
I believe what Monsieur Sterling has already told me about the events that occurred between Mademoiselle Elizabeth and the Major. I do not believe she would have had to do what she did if he had not attacked her and pushed her to the point where she feared for her life. I must listen to her story, the truth, and only then can her punishment be determined.
Mademoiselle Elizabeth, merci for joining us.
Miss Angeline said you requested to see me urgently.
We have some serious matters to discuss, and I would like to waste no further time.
Oh, yes, Detective.
How are you feeling, mademoiselle?
Still not quite myself.
I was surprised when Monsieur Sterling hurried you to assist Madame Vandenbosch last night.
I should not have avoided my duties for so long. The house does not stop because I'm feeling a little under the weather.
That is true, but you cannot be expected to complete all your tasks if you are not in the right frame of mind.
Honestly, Detective, it was best for me to not sit and wallow anymore.
My investigation has taken me down many paths this weekend.
Have you been able to uncover who the blackmailer is?
The blackmailer's identity has been established, and they will pay the price for their crimes.
Wonderful news, Detective. You can put it all behind you now. You must be thrilled.
I would not say thrilled, knowing that such a close friend has betrayed us.
Mademoiselle is correct. What I have learned over this weekend is that people are not always as they appear. While they may give an impression of being a friend or ally, they can in fact be something completely different.
And, what of the Major's killer?
Well, mademoiselle, that is why I have asked you here now.
I posed the question to all the guests what their thoughts on the Major were. Now I extend that question to you.
I'm not quite sure what you want me to say, Detective.
Your honest opinion is all I ask, and, s'il te plaît, do not hold back. No one else felt it necessary.
We only spoke when there was something in the house to be done. We did not speak of interests or pastimes.
You knew of his work with Monsieur de Silva?
I only know what is required of me to know, and that is very little.
But you were aware of his work as security at Monsieur de Silva's factory.
I was.
The factory your beloved Luke worked at before he was cruelly taken from this world.
Yes, Detective.
I understand Luke was not only involved in the strikes, but was on the front line.
Yes, that is where he spent his last moments. Standing shoulder to shoulder with his fellow workers.
The resulting riots were a terrible tragedy, one that I hope we will not have to see or experience again. Something that could have been avoided had the Major and his team done what was required of them.
Nobody deserved to die that day. Not my Luke.
Do you blame the Major for his death?
Detective, what kind of question is that?
It is a straightforward one. Mademoiselle, if there is something you wish to tell me, now is that time.
I'm sorry, Detective, I just don't know how to answer it.
Let us consider what we know of the Major. He fronted the militia that attacked the workers at the strike. You were aware of this? You finally had someone to blame for Luke's death. Someone conveniently located in the same house, alone in his study.
No, Detective. It wasn't like that.
Tell me what happened with the Major on the evening of his death.
I was only in here trying to prove what I heard Mr. Beckers say. I was going to report him, I swear. Miss Angeline, you believe me, don't you?
I want to. I am still trying to understand it all myself. Why don't you start from the beginning?
I was delivering Miss Angeline's dress to her room when I heard Mr. Beckers arguing with the Major in his study. They were ever so loud. I thought the whole house would have been listening to what they were saying. Mr. Beckers was talking about the factory strikes and how it was the Major's fault. He told him that if he didn't own up to his crimes, he would go to the newspapers.
I cannot imagine the Major would have taken kindly to Monsieur Becker's threat.
He didn't. He called him some rather uncouth names before Mr. Beckers left and went downstairs. I made sure to keep out of sight. After the altercation between the Major and Master Gideon, you went to speak with him outside, and I thought I could look around his study without anyone knowing. I had to know for sure. If it was true, he deserved to be held accountable.
And did you find the proof you are looking for?
I found a payment from Mr. De Silva, but there was nothing incriminating about that. I was so nervous. I felt like my heart was beating out of my chest.
And then you saw the blackmail note.
I recognised the writing on the envelope. I couldn't believe it. How could he do such a thing to Angeline? To the family that had taken him in?
Common sense would determine the Major was another victim of the blackmailer.
If I'd have used common sense, I wouldn't have been snooping around alone in his study in the first place. I heard the footsteps in the hall, and before I could move, the Major was standing in front of me, demanding to know why I was going through his belongings without permission. I tried to come up with an excuse, but nothing came out, and when he saw the letter in my hand, it was like Dr. Jekyll turning into Mr. Hyde. I tried to move around him towards the door, but he hurled something towards me, and it crashed against the wall.
That would explain the damage to the wall.
I froze. I have never been so scared in all my life. I thought he was going to kill me there and then.
And you thought you would beat him to it?
Oh, Detective, you make it sound as though I had it all planned. He lunged forward and grabbed me by the arm. I tried to push him away, but he was too strong. His grip just got tighter and tighter. If only you had seen the look in his eyes, I dared not even scream. I saw the sheath on his belt. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to hurt him, but he wouldn't let go of me.
So you took your opportunity to put an end to it all.
I just wanted to get him off me. I didn't want to hurt him. I reached for it and I jabbed it at him. His grip instantly loosened and I ran straight out the door and didn't look back.
You did not even look to see what state you had left him in?
She had just been attacked, Detective.
Oui, please. Continue.
I ran down to the pantry looking for Rahana. She took one look at me and knew something was wrong. I explained to her what had happened, and she went to find Archie. She said he would know what to do. We went back to the study, and he was still lying there, motionless. Archie said that no one would believe me. That if someone like me killed someone like him, I would be sent straight to the gallows. He left the letter so you would find it. He said that if people knew what the Major was really like, then they wouldn't care what happened to him.
I mean, that's fair. It's a proven fact that when most police, not Poirot, are investigating a crime that's being committed against a known criminal or against somebody, like the Major, like the worse the crimes the victim has done, the less effort the police are going to do into solving any crimes committed against them.
So I am to believe that it was Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna that cleaned the scene and orchestrated a plan that included a fake telephone call and dressing as the Major so that he may be seen. You had nothing to do with that.
I swear I had no idea that is what they had done. Archie just told me to stay out of sight. I am no master criminal.
Then Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna will be charged for obstruction of justice and impeding my investigation.
Please, detective, they were only trying to help me.
If they wished to help you, they should have brought all of this to my attention immediately instead of committing more illegal acts.
Surely you haven't forgotten what happened with Florette. She was only accused of stealing a bracelet. I killed a man.
It is a day I have not forgotten, mademoiselle, even for a moment.
Without your help, I don't stand a chance. Please, Detective Poirot, you are the only one that can help me.
Oh, Elizabeth, why didn't you come to me?
I didn't think you would believe me. I felt so guilty. And when it was announced yesterday that he was a victim of the blackmailer, I wanted to tell you everything. I came to find you last night, Detective, but Archie stopped me. I'm sorry.
All right. Let us solve this mystery. Is there really much of a mystery? I mean, stabbed the Major when he wouldn't let her go. There we go. Defensive strike.
Another success.
Elizabeth's story confirms Margot's claim. The Major's death was a result of a defensive strike. Finally, I have solved the case of the Major's murder. I must admit, I take no joy in declaring Mademoiselle Elizabeth as the killer, and I wish she had never been put in such a position at all. Hey, look at that. All of our cases are closed now.
Yes, of course, Detective.
Oh, I don't. Whoops.
Oh, yes, Detective.
The Major's missing knife.
I don't know where it is.
If you have been honest with me until now, I ask that you continue.
I'm sorry, I really don't know. Archie dropped it out of the study window and he said he would deal with it. I couldn't bear to touch the thing.
I have the knife in my possession, and I believe that from Mademoiselle's reaction, she does not know what became of it. She is unaware of the efforts that Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna went to mask what she had done. Monsieur Sterling was not lying when he said he would do anything for her. Wait in my room.
Please, I was only protecting myself. I didn't want to hurt him. He just wouldn't let me go.
Oui, mademoiselle. I know. Mademoiselle tells quite the harrowing story.
I cannot imagine the Major acting in such a way, but Elizabeth could not make up such a story.
After learning what I have about the Major's character this weekend, I would not question the lengths he would go to in order to keep his secret hidden. I know that you share a close bond with Mademoiselle Elizabeth, but you cannot allow your personal feelings to taint your belief of what took place.
She has committed a terrible crime, but she will live with that for the rest of her life. She is not a cold-blooded killer.
If what she says of the Major's attack is true, she acted in self-defense, and in the law's eyes, a crime has not been committed. I will do everything I can to make sure her story is heard and a fair trial is conducted.
I believe the version of events that Mademoiselle Elizabeth has confessed to are true. The Major, having fallen into a fit of rage at the prospect of his sordid secrets coming to light, he attacked the young Mademoiselle and drove her to do what she had to protect herself. She put herself in a dangerous position, but there is a small part of me that commends the duty she felt to find justice for her beloved and the other workers that lost their lives at the Major's order. If the telephone line is now working, I must call in my findings. With the remaining snow, it may still be some time before they
Mademoiselle,
arrive.
it is time I addressed the house.
Are you sure? What will you say? What if they do not listen?
I can assure you, they will.
Elizabeth was right, though. She's just a servant. What if they...
Mademoiselle, when Detective Poirot speaks, they will listen. Would you ask the guests to convene in the library?
Of course. And what of the staff?
I have told Monsieur Starling to remain in the staff quarters with the others. When the authorities arrive, they shall be dealt with. You have been of great help to me throughout my investigation, and now that it is over, I have one final request.
You only need to ask.
While I am speaking with the guests in the library, would you watch over Mademoiselle Elizabeth in my room?
You don't think she will try and escape, do you?
In her position, I do not know what she might try. But I trust with you there, any potential ideas of such a thing will be squashed.
So that says I completed chapter 8, which means we're going into the final chapter. Oh god, what to do though? Because I mean, if I split them in chapters, that's like 2 40-minute parts, I do believe. But we've only got one chapter left. And considering everything that's happened, there can't be an investigation or anything. So it's just got to be, yeah, fuck it, let's just finish it. I mean, it's just got to be like a big talky section, right? Like he's gonna lay it all out here. The wrap up, you know.
Detective, you have spent more time making us sit and wait for you than anything else.
Madame Van den Bosch, if you think I have spent my time focused on anything besides uncovering the Major's killer, you are sorely mistaken.
I'm sure you will be eager to share your findings with us then.
All in good time, Madame. Firstly, to understand the truth of what has occurred this weekend, one must know the timeline of events that not only preceded the Major's death, but succeeded.
We are all well aware of what happened before, Detective. You can save your breath.
You are only aware of what the guilty parties wanted you to believe, but now I shall apprise you to the true events. The reason for us all being here, you know. The altercation between Monsieur Demire and the Major, you know. The body of Monsieur Hagen was found while we were all sat enjoying a most delicious meal. That you also know. But what was kept from us all was that his body lay on the study floor for far longer than was thought.
It was that servant. She found him.
S'il te plaît, monsieur. It was indeed young Inga that found the Major's body lying lifeless in the study.
So it was her.
Monsieur, I will not allow for any further interruptions. I return to the Major's body. If we are to believe the scene that we were presented with, the Major must have been killed during the first course of our meal, a meal that none of you left, even for a moment. Speaking in the evening, you all confirmed one another's alibis, and although there was doubt in the validity of some, I confirmed that they were indeed all true. What I could not understand was how a man came to be found dead, and every guest accounted for at the time of death. That is until I questioned the latter. Monsieur Beckers, I shall now allow you to speak. You saw the Major smoking a cigar in the snow. Is that true?
It is.
False. You saw what you were meant to see. Someone in the Major's coat standing outside, giving the illusion that the Major was still very much alive. Monsieur da Silva, on the afternoon of the Major's death, do you recall hearing a telephone ring?
Now that you mention it, I have not heard a single ring all weekend.
Correct. The telephone lines have been down for the duration of our stay, meaning the telephone call that was received and promptly directed to the Major's study was yet another act of trickery and deceit. But it did not end there. When I entered the study for the first time, It was obvious someone had already been there and falsified the scene to stage a burglary and clear away important evidence, including the murder weapon. What followed was an investigation that had already been hindered, but even those lengths were not enough to derail me for long.
I think we have all had enough of your self-praise, Detective. Perhaps you would like to tell us who killed him now?
Madame, as I'm sure you would expect, it is not as simple as that. What many of you do not know is the discussion that was had between the Major and Monsieur Beckers earlier that day.
What has that got to do with anything? I told you I didn't kill him.
That I know to be true. What you do not know is that it was not only his ears that heard your spoken words.
I hope you are not implying I had something to do with it.
No, madame, there was another. Mademoiselle Elisabeth. You are all aware that the Major was hired by Monsieur de Silva to front the security during the workers' strikes. What very few of you know is that it was the Major's order that instigated the vicious attacks on those unarmed men and resulted in numerous deaths, including Mademoiselle Elisabeth's fiancé, Luc. Monsieur Beckers confronted the Major, declaring that he was to hand himself in. That is what Mademoiselle Elisabeth overheard. Now, knowing the truth, she waited until the Major was away from his study. After he stepped outside following the confrontation with Monsieur Demir's fist, it looked to be the perfect opportunity, or so she thought. The Major returned and found her looking for the proof she required to hand him over to the authorities.
If the maid bumped him off, why hasn't she been arrested?
The events that followed in the study are not those of a cold-blooded murder, but one of a young girl that had no other option but to protect her own life.
Sounds to me, Detective, like you have taken a shine to this young girl and would rather
Is a young
protest
girl
her
correct? I mean, I'm
innocence
not
than
saying that
risk
she's
her
old,
murder
but I mean, young
for the
girl
crime
to
she's
me is
committed.
like under 20.
Jeez, this is gonna make for a juicy story.
Mademoiselle, I ask you this. You have seen the Major's anger before, oui?
What if I have?
How do you think he would have reacted if someone was to find proof that he had committed a terrible act, and that if made public, would surely result in his incarceration? Exactement.
It is quite the story you have told, Detective, but all I have heard is that Elizabeth overheard a conversation blaming the Major for her fiancé's death, and she murdered him in revenge. A servant killing a man that is as revered as he was.
I hate people
She
like this
will
bitch.
face the noose.
I am not denying that a man has lost his life, but it is not the crime of murder that you all believe. While the Major did not deserve to die in such a way, it was his actions towards Mademoiselle Elisabeth that drove her to defend herself in any way she could. Mademoiselle Elisabeth will be punished, but we will let the law decide the severity of her punishment.
She has played you like a fiddle, Detective, acting the innocent victim. She will be arrested and hanged for her crime, like every other cold-blooded killer.
Here, here.
Give her what she deserves.
The girl has got to pay for what she's done.
Could not have been clearer with what occurred in the Major's study. They all have forgotten their own perceptions of the Major, the terrible crimes he has committed, and what he has done to them all in one way or another. Cannot allow for Mademoiselle Elizabeth's sentence to be negatively influenced by those of that in the house. I must help them to see how their past actions have led to these unfortunate circumstances and losses of life. Perhaps I should remind them all of their participation in not only the workers' strike, but the resulting
Those of
riots.
you that are calling for the hanging of Mademoiselle Elisabeth, have you forgotten the roles you played? Your actions have been far from innocent.
Look, Detective, I see where you are going with this, but it's not going to work. So maybe the strikes were down to De Silva and Beckers. But don't try and drag me into their mistakes.
Mademoiselle Conrad, if you are so confident of your innocence, perhaps we should begin with you.
Convincing Mademoiselle Conrad to admit to her involvement would be no easy feat. She is strong-minded and has deflected questions in the past. Perhaps a more aggressive approach is in order. You would do almost anything for a headline, n'est-ce pas?
You don't need to imply it's only me that does. Ask any of my journalists, they'll say the same.
Even if in the process people are hurt? You knew the situation surrounding the strikes and only sought to swell the anger in people and create further chaos. Mademoiselle, you so often have something to say. Now is not the time for silence.
You really are delusional.
Maybe you should just keep your theories and claims to yourself.
You used others for your own agenda, not considering the repercussions.
You obviously have no idea what goes on in my world. I would say stick to honest police work, but it seems that it's not in your field either.
You have allowed others to fall while you walk proudly across their backs.
Look, it's...
Mademoiselle, I do not have time for your excuses. Do you wish to state your direct involvement, or should I?
It's not... Okay, fine. Yes, the story was going nowhere. There was a deal on the table, and it was going to be done and dusted. Everything you said is true. I wanted the story. The scoop that would have blown the others out of the water. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. But I can see what I did wasn't right. I didn't think you had this side in you. I can see now why Angeline asked for you personally. You're not like other cops. It's clear it's the law and doing the right thing through and through with you. If you say it was self-defense, I believe you.
We can't just forget what that girl has done. It's not Jackie's fault, or any of ours, that she decided to do what she did.
Monsieur Beckers, you are the last person I expected to defend Mademoiselle Conrad. We talked only last night, and correct me if I am wrong, but you have already declared the role you played. To me, at least.
Yes, we talked. It's just not fair of you to attack Jackie like that, putting words in her mouth until she succumbs to your plan.
I know enough of Monsieur Beckers to know that pushing him will not yield the results I need. Playing the role of an ally may be the best way to approach him. Even as leader of the Union, you were swayed by one that had no part in any Union dealings.
Detective, I'm afraid you're misunderstood. That is not how it was. It was not my intention for things to escalate as they did. I could not have predicted that would happen. Jackie was documenting everything to do with the strikes. She wanted our story to be heard and wanted to know how I was handling the negotiations.
And they were handled by yourself?
Naturally. If I cannot handle simple negotiations, I am not fit to be in the position I am in.
You take great pride in your work. Are you proud of the decisions made during the strikes?
I was only pushing for what my men deserved, what they needed. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, Detective. Surely you must know that. Nothing is ever simple, Detective. I'm sure you understand that better than anyone.
I understand that you may not wish such details to be presented in front of your fellow guests, but for justice to prevail, the whole truth must be known.
You're right, Detective. I have tried so hard to deny my part, but I know only too well that my decisions led to the death of those men. I know I cannot excuse what I've done. I just want you all to know that I am not a hateful or malicious man. I only wanted to prove that I was the right man. I have lived in other shadows for so long. I thought I would be able to finally step into the light and be the one that everyone remembered, not forgot. Monsieur da Silva offered me a deal and I turned it down. I thought I was doing right by the workers, but it was only myself I was thinking about.
What more proof do you need? He said it himself. I made a generous offer to reach a resolution, and he turned his nose up at it.
It was not that simple, though. An offer was made, but Monsieur Beckers and the workers would never have been forced into that position had their working conditions been satisfactory to begin with.
This is outrageous! Do you plan on blaming everyone for doing their jobs? I suppose it makes you feel better about yourself, doesn't it?
Although Monsieur de Silva eventually opened up, he was defensive when we discussed the matters of his blackmail, and that was a private conversation behind closed doors. I cannot imagine he'll be forthcoming in front of the other guests. He's going to need some convincing, admit his faults again. If you were simply doing your job and treating your men fairly, there would not be a strike to talk about.
It may be a big deal to you, but I am used to workers not being happy with something. And most of the time, that unhappiness is directed at me. When you're in charge of your own factory, you'll understand. I handle the situation the best I could. If you think otherwise, maybe you have proved us all right, that you aren't the great detective you claim to be.
You were willing to pay an anonymous blackmailer that accused you of the same?
You said it. Anonymous. I don't know them, and it doesn't sound like they know me. When you have something people want, money, they will do anything, including constructing lies to get their hands on it.
Monsieur da Silva, you seem to have forgotten our previous conversations.
I recall them just fine, thank you. A police officer trying to manipulate facts to fit his own agenda. Shocking.
Intentional or not, your arrangement with the Major kindled the fire that started the riots.
Do you really think this is the first time blame has fallen at my feet? Although I don't think I have seen someone try so hard before to even convince themselves of what they are saying.
Have you not learnt enough already from having your factories closed? If you have any hope to return to normality, you must admit your faults and accept the repercussions.
I may have been a little harsh with my staff. I only wanted to prepare them for the realities of this world.
Here's the thing. If they were like students, then you could use that excuse. But you are the realities of the world. You're their job. Everything before you get your first job could be considered preparing them for the realities of the world, because that's going to be their life, working in that. You weren't preparing them for reality. You were trying to force them to accept your reality that you believed they should fall, or in the role they should play in it.
I was never given the opportunities that they have today, and I succeeded. All they do is demand more and more at the factories and at the house. How am I meant to keep a good profit if every franc is going to them? I offered what I could. I was willing to meet in the middle. But maybe that wasn't enough.
I mean, I'm still very confused by this part of the story because, like I said, we read the contract and nothing in it declared what he was going to do for the workers. Everything in the contract was just the workers go back to work.
Swallowing one's pride is no easy feat. But if it means that a young girl will receive fair judgment, I am prepared to do it.
Merci, monsieur, for your honesty. Admitting your responsibility is an honorable move.
What now, Detective? Is this absurdity going to continue much longer?
Can we just shoot this one? I realize we don't have a gun, but
Even after all your attempts, Detective, Felix was still murdered. Self-defense or not, she chose to hide what she had done because she knew what she had done was wrong. And she will be punished for it.
It was not choice to hide anything, madame. If in her position, I ask, what would you have done? The Major has already furiously thrown an object at you, barely missing your head, and now has hold of your arm.
I wouldn't have driven a knife into him, that I can tell you for sure. She is no fool. She intended to kill, not to defend.
Madame Van den Bosch will be a much greater challenge, but my method of approach has worked with her before. If I'm to sway her into seeing that Mademoiselle Elizabeth had no other option, must persuade her that it was the Major's action that drove her to what she did. You are the closest to the Major. His violent temper cannot come as a surprise.
Quite presumptuous of you to assume violence is in his nature.
I mean, he is a military man,
Putting my own feelings towards the Major aside, he was not an honorable man, at least at some time in his life. He must have been for you to allow him in your house for so many years. So, even you confirm he had a history of aggression.
He played the role of a caring friend very well, but that is all it was, a performance.
You have no idea. He was there for us when we needed him.
You were there for him when he needed free room and board.
That is not the case, and you know it.
His actions are unforgivable and should not be defended by anyone.
You judge him so harshly, but I return the question. What would you have done in his position? He had made mistakes. I will not deny that. In those moments when a decision had to be made, it fell to him, and he did what he saw fit.
And what of the mistreatment that you received from the Major? You cannot justify that?
S'il te plaît, madame. I ask that you consider everything you know of the Major carefully.
He was not always like that. The man that I called a friend would never have done what he has. I cannot allow another innocent person to be punished for his vicious and barbarous behavior.
You have seen the Major act in a similar manner as I described before, haven't you? What was the outcome then?
You have convinced me that I am wrong, in both my opinion on Elizabeth's punishment and in the friendships I keep. Is that not enough for you?
Not when a potential crime has been committed, and I fear an innocent party may have been punished for it.
He was just a boy. I told him to stop, but he was like a wild animal.
The confrontation with Mademoiselle Elizabeth was not the first time he has come close to killing another.
It was following the officers' ball. A young man, no older than 16, stopped us on the street, begging for some change. Felix pushed him away, but he was persistent. He only wanted a few coins. Like a flash, Felix snapped and wouldn't let go of him. He would not stop punching him. I have never seen anything so brutal.
But he was never charged for the attack.
Felix called the captain at the station and said that the boy had tried to rob him, and he was merely defending himself. The boy was thrown behind bars without a second thought. It was a full week before the bruises on Felix's knuckles finally faded.
And even after witnessing such a brutal assault, you still support him. You still believe that he had not attacked Elizabeth.
The days following, he showed no signs of remorse, no apology to him or to me. I blamed it on the amount he had had to drink. But when you began talking about him finding Elizabeth in his study, I somehow knew it had happened again.
Maybe he has that same thing that LL Cool J had on House. The adrenaline-secreting tumor on his hypothalamus.
Had you been open about the Major's temper, this could all have been avoided. When you tell the courts the truth, Mademoiselle Elizabeth's self-defense plea cannot be ignored.
Just when I thought I could not see a more spineless move.
Excuse me?
You allowed a bully and thug to remain in your house and endanger your family.
I'm sorry, Margot, but I am struggling to understand why you have involved yourself in this affair.
I'm surprised you can hear me way up there on that high horse of yours.
Oh my.
How dare you speak to me in that way? Who I decide to keep in my house is my decision and no one else's.
I can see that. Murderers, thieves, and extortionists are all acceptable, it seems.
You're the extortionist, though.
Countess, I have talked at length of the Major's death, but not the reason for my invitation in the first place. When I last gathered you all together, I spoke of a blackmail ring that was rife in the area, and then of the letter that the Major had received. Mademoiselle Angeline requested my help personally after she received such a letter threatening her family name. She felt I was the only one that could uncover the truth. And uncover the truth I have.
Get on with it, detective. Who dared try and extort my family and then have the gall to allow me to welcome them into my home?
If it was not for the honesty of a young servant, I would perhaps still be looking for the...
For goodness sake, it was me.
Well, that just takes the fun out of it.
Margot, how could you?
She's just so tired of hearing Poirot talk. She's like, oh, fuck, not this again.
While it looked as though the Countess was helping the young women at the shelter, she was in fact only finding them positions of employment in wealthy homes to gather information on them and learn secrets that she would ultimately be able to use against them. Monsieur da Silva fell victim to her network of moles and was in turn blackmailed. It was quite the prosperous setup you had, knowing that they would not be prepared to lose their social standing if a secret was to find its way from where it had been hidden for so long.
That cannot be true, Margot. How could you do such a cruel thing?
That is rich, coming from you.
You are one of my oldest friends.
High and mighty, Madame van den Bosch. You think you can do what you wish when you wish it and there will be no repercussions. You are as bad as all of them.
If I do not get a straight answer out of you, I will march you to the police station myself.
I'm surprised it took the Major this long to start living with you. He must have been on the edge for some time.
How dare you speak to me like that? In my own home.
A home you share with the father of your daughter for so many years, and she still remains none the wiser.
Oh, they did finally bring it up. It's a weird time to bring that up.
You have no right.
Maman,
Angeline? Have you heard what she has admitted to? She is merely trying to make herself...
is what she says true? Felix, he was my father? That is the secret that the letter was talking about, isn't it? You told me that we had nothing to hide. Detective Poirot, were you aware of this?
Oui, mademoiselle. But it was not my place to repeat.
I don't understand. What about father?
Your maman betrayed the love of a good, honest man and played away behind his back and then kept it hidden for all these years like a lady of the night with her client list.
You will say no more. Angeline, I...
Did Felix know?
This is not an appropriate conversation.
He knew, dear girl. He knew the whole time. It is only dear Edwin that was blind to their deceit.
You will not talk of him like that. You will not talk of him at all.
If I don't, who will? You never deserved him. You don't even deserve the memory of him.
Countess, there is something that you still have not explained.
What more is there for her to say?
How long were you in love with the Viscount for?
Margot? Is that true?
We were destined to be together. And then you turned up, and I was all but forgotten about.
But you were nothing more than friends.
And you made sure of that, didn't you? From the day you arrived, it was all about what you wanted and what you had to do to get it. You didn't consider Edwin at all. He was just a purse to you.
I loved my husband, and I miss him every day.
Loved him enough to stray?
Both of you, no more.
Please, Angeline, let me explain.
Maman, I do not wish to hear anything else from you.
Not even your own daughter wants to hear your lies anymore. Cassandra van den Bosch, all alone.
How dare you!
Poirot's just like, I'm just gonna piece out of this conversation.
While I feel a sense of satisfaction and pride in solving both cases, there is still a part of me that is reluctant to revel in triumph. I am content with the unmasking of Comtesse de Vos as the blackmailer, and knowing that she will pay for her crimes. But it is the justice for Mademoiselle Elizabeth that worries me. She will stand in a court of law, and I can only hope that they can see she acted in self-defense. I must trust that our legal system and justice will prevail, and a fair sentencing will be given. In protecting her own life, she took the life of another. Perhaps the guilt she must live with is a greater punishment than any sentence she can receive. Countess de Vos was taken from Nemozinet House in cuffs and placed under arrest. Although she initially tried to plead her innocence, Inge, along with a number of other girls that the Countess had found employment for, came forward and made full statements. She was charged with 5 counts of blackmail and extortion and sent to a house of corrections, where she will have a new life to become accustomed to. Monsieur Sterling and Mademoiselle Rihanna were also reprimanded for their participation. While they may not be facing time in prison, tampering with a crime scene and obstruction of a police investigation are certainly not something that houses and new employers will look positively on. Mademoiselle Angeline finally became Madame Demire, and together they took up residence in England, where Monsieur Demire continues to support and fight for fairness and equality in London. I am happy to say that we have remained in contact, and Madame Demire has become a regular correspondent of mine, and the latest joyous news is that they are expecting a child of their own. Madame van den Bosch showed compassion that I had not seen in her before. She stood in court and gave a truthful and genuine character reference of Elizabeth, as well as describing the Major and the atrocious crimes he had committed. After Madame van den Bosch's secret was revealed to the world, her position in the social hierarchy was no more, disappearing in a moment. While she still resides in Belgium, I believe she has had to adapt to a far more modest way of life. A humbling experience for her, I am sure. Following her actions in the courtroom, Angeline believed that her maman still had a place in her life. Although they are on different sides of La Manche, they remain in contact. Mademoiselle Conrad left Nemozinet House the same way she entered, confident in herself and audacious in her opinions. Her report of the Major's murder at the house and the surrounding blackmails became one of the most talked about stories of the year. While there were certain details of her own involvement that did not make it to print, she was really quite complimentary about the detective at the heart of the case. Monsieur de Silva tried to continue in his position as factory owner and business entrepreneur, but after his accounts and business dealings were investigated following the details of his blackmail being made public in Mademoiselle Conrad's article, his illustrious business empire began to crumble and is now facing an international corporate investigation. Monsieur Beckers stepped down from his position as union leader, accepting that he was no longer fit to represent the workforce that, in his words, he had let down on a scale of unmeasurable proportion. Although he is no longer the voice of the workers, he continues to support them from behind the scenes. Monsieur Zachariah and his brother made amends, and returning to his family home, and after sobering up, he was able to find the help that he required. I understand that he is now helping fellow soldiers with similar conditions. And Mademoiselle Elizabeth, she stood before a court, and while the proceedings were deemed controversial, the charges against her were dropped, and the reasoning of self-defense was accepted by the presiding judge. Madame van den Bosch's testimony, along with Mademoiselle Angeline's declaration of her good character, was enough to show that it was not in Elizabeth's nature to act in such a violent way. The abundance of evidence against the Major, and his violent and cruel nature, including his appalling acts during the strikes and the war, was more than enough to prove that Mademoiselle Elizabeth had no other option in that situation but to defend herself in any way that she could. With the new arrival of Madame and Monsieur Demire's child next year, they have agreed to give Elizabeth the opportunity to return home to England and take up a position in their home as nanny. The death of Elizabeth's beloved Luc has been at the center of everything. had those in positions to help not acted with only themselves in mind, perhaps he would still be alive today, and the Major would have paid the price for his own crimes in the eyes of the law, not at the blade of a knife. The blood of Major Felix Egan will remain on Elizabeth's hands, a stain that wherever she is and whatever she may do, she will never be able to wash clean. However, it will remain as a reminder to not only her, but all of us, of what we as human beings are capable of to protect ourselves. We all have something that may be considered shameful or sinful, and it is how we deal with it that shows our true character. Those involved in the riots, the workers' deaths, and the Major's killing believed themselves to be untouchable. Whether it was from their social standing or their confidence in themselves, they learned that everyone is accountable for their actions. There is no exemption because of the suit you wear or the money in your bank account. There is no price to a man's life. It cannot be bought or traded or discarded. No man is better than another, including Detective Hercule Poirot.
I mean, it depends on what you're going for. Oh, fuck, I dropped my controller. Because, I mean, if you get into specifics, some men or women are better than others. I mean, like, you know, if we were talking about running, I'm not going to say that Usain Bolt is just as good as me because, I mean, that's really giving myself an insane amount of credit. But I mean, if you're just talking about like in general, then I mean, yeah, you can't say that because I mean, the extent of somebody's skills in that like is huge. Like the amount of like if you took two dudes and were like, let's see if they're equal, the amount of like things that you would have to test, and then it's like what determines like what would be a good test and whatnot. But anyway, I like the sentiment behind it. You know, no one's worth more than anyone else. I mean, yeah, I mean, sure. It's not true, but it's also not really something that's easily testable for you to, you know, determine. So, overall, I thought it was a pretty good game. I mean, Poirot definitely walked faster than he did in the ABC Murders one that we played on the channel here. But I still would have liked if he had picked up the pace a bit more. I'm gonna check the achievements. I have 3 achievements missing. Inspect every window. Stop for refreshment. I don't know where that one is. And the staff-related areas. Obviously, the window and staff-related areas I just missed. I'm assuming that I only missed, like, 1. And apparently, the take a break, the refreshment was during Chapter 4 in the interrogation. So, I should be able to do that. And the last window, there we go, is in Hugo's bedroom, which was in Chapter 6. And then I have no idea what staff-related thing I missed. I really don't. I mean, I thought that I looked through all the rooms pretty good when I went, but I mean, who the fuck knows? But yeah, overall it was pretty good. I didn't much like the whole mind map thing. Like I like the idea behind it, but I feel like in this game they had too many clues that were like basically the same clue, or at least close enough to the same clue where when you tried to link them, like I would link clue A and C and it's like, no, that's not right. And then I'd link clue A and C and it gave me a result that, or and then whatever. I'd link clue 1 and 2 and it would be like, no, those don't connect. I link like clue 1 and 3 and it would give me a conclusion that 1 and 2 could have also got from, or could have also came to, you know? So, I mean, I don't mind it, but I feel like the mind map at the very least should have been done better. And I mean, story-wise, I am kind of disappointed that this game is called The First Cases, and we had, well, I guess technically 3 cases, right? Because we had the missing bracelet, the blackmail, and the murder. So technically it was 3 cases, but I mean, in reality, it was 2. Well, no, I guess cause since the blackmail and the murder had very little to do with each other, if anything, really. I mean, yeah, very little. Um, I guess I'll give it 3 cases. But even still, when it was called the first cases, I expected to do like a bunch of cases in a bunch of cases, not one and then another one that led and then like 2 at the same time, basically. Uh, but even with that, I mean that's like a very minor thing. It's basically like they should have called the game something else. I don't know if this is based off like a specific book or something. I don't know. I don't really read detective novels. I love detective games and I love detective movies and that, but I don't really care for reading detective novels because a lot of the time it's either super obvious in the beginning who the killer is going to be, or they just don't give you information so that they can surprise you. It's like, haha, the killer was this, and look, this is why, and then they give you a bunch of information that you should have had beforehand. Um, but yeah, it's a shame that I missed those achievements. But by the looks of it, I'm gonna have to go if I decide to go for all 3 of them, which I probably will, because it shouldn't take me too long. I don't think if I'm just cruising through it. Um, I'll have to go all the way up to chapter 7, unfortunately, to get them all, which is a lot. It's the majority of the game. But yeah, I mean, I'd give it a solid 8 or 9 out of 10. I mean, like I said, the mind map stuff definitely needed to be worked better. I'm not sure how I feel about like having to break through their defenses. I do enjoy the thought behind it, but I don't know. It was a little weird. But yeah, that'll be it for this game. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to play next. Maybe I'll put up because I do have a couple different games that I could play. Maybe I'll put up a poll to see. But thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you next time for more.